Hi, and welcome to the podcast. All right, so this podcast is about deciding whether children under a certain age should be allowed to play contact sports. I think they shouldn't be able to, or at least not until a certain age, like 18 or 19, or whenever their brain stops developing. Because when a child gets a concussion, that can cause damage to the brain tissue and lead to further developmental issues in their lives.
Hi, I'm Jose, and I think that children at young ages like 6 to 10 or middle schoolers like 12 to 14 should not play contact sports because it could be dangerous for their health because it could give the child a bad concussion and it could make your child not function their brain properly.
Hi, it's Beasley, and I think children should not be able to play contact sports because repetitive head injury can lead to many other injuries.
There are no specific rules to how someone can be tackled in youth football. There are some actually in professional football, but not in youth football, which I think that should be changed. And there should at least be a penalty for someone who hits someone else wrong.
I think that parents that put their kids in sports like football, they push them to be great in the sport, but they don't realize how dangerous the sport could be. By playing contact sports, it could affect their health at early age with a hard hit to the head.
Repetitive head injury can lead to CTE, and these are three professional athletes that had CTE, and that made them have memory disturbance, behavioral, and personal changes.
Parents who don't realize that their kids are injured will try and keep them in the sports and not give them a break. Even like small issues, they can lead to bigger problems later in life because the brain is still developing, it's still growing, and any deformity can be greatly exaggerated later on down the road.
And people in middle school or high school, they tend to play a little more tougher and rough because they're a little bit older and like to play rough. But by them playing rough, there's a high chance of them getting a concussion. And yeah. Another example would be like you could get a concussion in a practice or in the middle of a game. Basically, you can get a concussion in any given moment when you play contact sports.
Or, for example, a 45-year-old Caucasian man died unexpectedly as a result of an accidental gunshot wound to the chest while cleaning his gun. He had CTE. He was concussioned 3 times during his college years and at least 8 times during his NFL career. At the age of 40, his family saw damage in his short-term memory, attention, concentration, organization, planning, problem-solving, judgment, and problems with multitasking.
CTE is a terrible thing. Someone who's older who can't walk anymore because of a certain injury to the leg, that's different from someone who's older who can't think and form complete thoughts when they're older. Professional football players have committed suicide from this. Some players that committed suicide were Jovan Belcher, Forrest Blue, Lou Carpenter, Lou Creekmer, and there are many others. And most of the players who died, they donated their brains to science afterwards, so they could research and study what causes CTE and how it can be prevented.
I also agree with Quinn when he said concussions are bad, but they're even worse in children. I also think this because since children are still learning and growing as humans, the blows to the head can really do critical damage to the brain.
A study was conducted to determine the risk of concussion among youth football players at ages 8 to 12. There were 468 young male participants, 8,415 practices, and 2,923 games for a total of 11,338 athletic exposures, or AEs. The end result was that out of the 11,338 AEs, athletic exposures, there were only 20 concussions. Younger players were actually less likely to get a concussion than older players, the 8 to 10-year-old odds had lower concussion rates than 11 to 12-year-old players. But there's still a chance. I'm gonna look up some examples really quick.
I have a chart right here, and it says
Say that part. Say that part.
about the head injuries in
Is that yours?
sports.
That's me, but that's your part.
Alright.
Like that part, because I got
Wait, you stopped it?
Nah, but
No,
he could edit
It's
it.
fine. Yeah, I can edit it.
All right.